Halloween time once again, kiddies, and I think you all know what that entails around here on the Skully the Metalhead channel. We got ourselves some delicious Pepsi, and of course, what Halloween night would be complete without La Pizza? So, join me as today we review Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Demonic Toys, and... whatever, I'll deal with it later. So, Demonic Toys, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you well versed in your B horror movies, you might be familiar with a company known as Full Moon Entertainment, now known as Full Moon Features. Probably most famously known by people for the guys who made Puppet Master, Ginger Dead Man, Killjoy, Doll Man, Bad Channels, and Subspecies. Chances are, if you're looking for B-movie fun, Full Moon has got you covered. It's kinda surprising how many cult movies they've produced over the years, and especially in this day and age of internet reviewers, it's created a goldmine of material to work with. Especially those of you who are fans of web shows like Shitcase Cinema or Phalos in the Movies. In fact, Full Moon are so proud of their extensive back catalogue of horror movies that they dared to do the one thing that nobody else has ever done before. With Puppet Master being their biggest franchise at the time, Full Moon decided that it was high time to rip off themselves. Case in point, Demonic Toys. But I suppose the biggest question is, why am I reviewing this instead of Halloween 2? And the answer is... well, if it wasn't for Demonic Toys, I wouldn't be the horror fan that I am today. Is it a well-made movie? Not really. Is it a cinematic masterpiece that was shunned upon release? Well, no. But what Demonic Toys did was that it allowed me to make an evolutionary transition where I stopped being scared shitless of horror movies and instead actually started to enjoy them. Yes, in an era before I became a fan of movies such as the 80s slasher trio or Japanese horror movies, my love of horror movies began with Full Moon Entertainment. Without much development history to really speak of here, allow me to reiterate how I first saw the movie, which back in the day was via the internet, more specifically on YouTube of all places, surprisingly. After somebody had uploaded the movie into 9 parts, and being morbidly curious after watching the trailer for the movie, I decided to check it out, and ultimately, I ended up having a blast with it. So without wasting any more time, let's play with the Demonic Toys and see what kind of fun we can have here. The film, while clearly being set on a low budget, I will say does have some pretty decent puppetry work on the toys, more specifically in regards to Baby Oopsie Daisy and Jack Attack. Though that being said, Mr. Static and the Grizzly Teddy are pretty decently handled in their own right. The soundtrack, while very clearly sounding like a product of its time, especially with the rock tracks composed by the band Joker, it is still quite decent, with Richard Band's score being pretty well suited to the atmosphere that the movie is trying to craft. Performance-wise, while maybe not the most Shakespearean thing you've ever seen, it can be very entertaining in regards to the performances here, particularly that of Michael Russo's Lincoln as well as Peter Schrumm's Charnetsky. Though my top pick for best performance in the movie would have to go to the Demon played by Robert Stockel. So without wasting any more time, let's dive into the plot. So the plot kicks off with some police officers named Judith Gray and Matt Cable staking out the parking lot of the Arcadia warehouse, going undercover to bust some arms dealers. But unlike any other cop duo, Judith and Matt are in a relationship with one another. And then of course, like all couples, the discussion of having children enters the conversation.
Are you pregnant?
I found out this morning.
Well, that's great! I'm gonna be a dad.
Oh, well that's nice. I'm sure he's gonna go on to lead a long, fulfilling life... And never mind. The two crooks named Lincoln and Hess escape into the building, with Lincoln deciding to part ways with Hess.
They can help me! Get the fuck away from me!
Meanwhile, we then cut to security guard Charnetsky, who for some reason can't hear or see the battle happening inside his building, deciding to call for some chunky chicken.
Now get off your fucking ass and bring me my food.
It's also here where we meet our secondary protagonist, Mark Wayne, a chicken delivery boy who, if it wasn't obvious enough from his callous attitude, really doesn't like his job very much, as demonstrated by his innate talent at ruffling his manager's feathers.
I want you to make sure you come right on back here, mister! Well, maybe I won't come back. Maybe I'll just plow your fucking chicken mobile into the river.
Chicken mobile? Why the hell does that sound so familiar? No, not the chicken mobile! Oh my god. Back in the warehouse, Judith manages to arrest Lincoln while Hess crawls away to his death until he sees a ray of light open up in the center of the room. Okay, that didn't happen, and no, Mr. Bean isn't responsible for the demonic toys, but wouldn't that make for a fun crossover? Anyway, throwing caution off to the wind since he probably figures that he's dying anyway, Hess crawls into the light upon bleeding onto the floor, which awakens our main antagonists in the demonic toys. And then, for whatever reason, he decides to investigate the moving Jack-in-the-Box. Look, I know he's probably dying from blood loss and all that, but what the hell would compel you to summon up the strength to go off and investigate the Jack-in-the-Box? Anyway, Hess discovers the creature inside the Jack-in-the-Box, and let's just say that considering his circumstances, this really bites. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. Gotta love those practical effects, man. As if that wasn't bad enough, the teddy bear decides to get in on the action, and suffice it to say, if Hess thought that the pain was unbearable now, then I think he's bitten off more than he can chew. Fortunately, or unfortunately, to end Hess's suffering, comes my favourite character in the movie, the Demon.
Hi, Guy. Thanks for coming. We're gonna have a lot of fun here tonight, friend. We're gonna raise hell.
I'll get into why I like this character later on in the movie, but just to preface my point, I'll say this. The first of which being his voice provided by Robert Stockwell, giving a performance that sounds both cool and unnerving considering that a deep voice is being spoken by such a young kid. But secondly, it's also the way in which he delivers his lines in a very amused, dark sense of humour that you kind of expect from a demon. Anyway, Mr. Static decides to finish off Hess by blasting him with his laser beams. Meanwhile, Judith and Lincoln are sealed inside the storeroom, while Mark delivers Charnetsky his food. And of course, like all intergenerational friendships, Charnetsky and Mark decide to share pornography and talk about philosophy.
The world is a toilet, and all the people in it are assholes.
Deciding that she's had enough of waiting around, Judith, like all freedom-loving Americans what with their yeehaws and cowboy hats, decides that she simply can't take it anymore and must express her freedom by firing her gun randomly into the air, alerting Mark and Charnetsky to her presence. Upon arrival, Judith informs Charnetsky of the situation before Charnetsky then sets back out into the halls to call the police. And I think we all know where this is headed.
Hi, you fat fuck. I'm Baby Oopsie Daisy. You lord ass. Will you be my special friend?
Okay, to back up a little bit, I'm sure they probably intended Baby Oopsie Daisy to be the breakout character for this movie akin to Blade from the Puppet Master movies, but in all honesty, I'm not sure what Full Moon were trying to do with her here. I mean, from dialogue snippets like this...
I can walk, I can talk, I can even shit my pants. Can you shit your pants?
It sounds as if they were trying to go for a more sardonic tongue-in-cheek take on the whole killer doll concept, but I don't think it's something that really works in making the character as funny as Full Moon were hoping for. Anyway, Charnetsky suffers an equally grisly fate as he's attacked by the teddy bear and Jack-in-the-Box. Yeah, to put it bluntly, Charnetsky isn't having a very knife day. With Charnetsky's death, we're then introduced to our next character, Anne, a runaway from an abusive home who's been living out in the Arcadia toy factory for some time, possessing knowledge about the toys and the demonic forces at work here. Anne explains that demonic spirits are influencing the toys, much to Judith's disbelief before immediately being proven wrong by some blocks moving of their own accord.
What do you want?
Who do you want dead?
The demon then makes his presence known after possessing Lincoln, expositing that he needs Judith alive above everybody else. Anyway, Judith, priding duty over the situation at hand, decides to stay behind to guard the unconscious Lincoln, while Anne and Mark are left to crawl through the vents. Look, I know Lincoln is a criminal and needs to be brought to justice, but I'm pretty sure being attacked by demonic toys kinda makes that point a little bit moot by comparison. Anyway, being the sneaky bastard that he is, Lincoln picks the lock of his cuffs while Judith is sent off to the astral plane to have a chat with the demon. And one of my favourite things about this sequence is that we get to see just how casual the demon is while explaining what he plans to do with Judith.
You look like a little boy to me.
Oh? I can take any form I want to. I can be this. I'm gonna be a dad, Jude. We should have never moved in together. You just don't take me seriously anymore.
I mean, it might not seem like much, but there's just something so entertaining about the demon and how pleasant he is about carrying out his business, and because of that, he's probably my favourite character in the movie. The demon explains that back in 1925, he was initially going to be born into a physical body. However, his birth was stopped upon being a stillborn, leading to the Satanists who were attempting to bring him into this world to hand off his dead fetus into the hands of some trick-or-treaters to dispose of. What? I don't know what to say about that, I'm sorry. Upon looking into the bag, the kids are scared to death of the bloody thing and toss it off into the construction site where the Arcadia toy factory is being built. Hang on a second, wouldn't the construction workers notice a dead demon fetus lying on their construction site? Anyway, to give context to what the demon plans to do with Judith, I'll let him explain it.
You see, in order for me to take on a human form, I have to be born like a human. At the moment of birth, I ride shotgun down the old birth canal, and I come out instead, Judith. Or should I call you Mom?
And so, here's our plot point. Meanwhile, Anne and Mark see ghostly hallucinations, acting as seekers to allow the toys to find their victims.
Oh shit, they've seen us!
With Mr. Static and Baby Oopsie Daisy taking to the vents, attacking Mark and Anne, they scramble into Charnetsky's office where Mark starts getting fired up.
Hey, you're fucking up my makeup!
Unfortunately for them, however, the security equipment is destroyed and the toys have them surrounded. Yes, bring the killer Jack-in-the-Box in to the office, you stupid woman. Anne dies of her injuries, but Mark manages to hold his own by means of shotgun.
I got a shotgun.
And what better way to finish off your enemies than with a good old Silent Hill stomp? And of course, just to further piss on Mark's day, the demon decides to have his fun with him.
How do you want your death served up to you? You want that chunk style? Or extra crispy?
Meanwhile, Judith awakens to find Lincoln free of his cuffs and heads off to find him. Mark, on the other hand, starts seeing this.
Hello, Mark.
Sort of brings a tear to your eye, don't it?
Anyway,
I'll take that!
as it turns out, Lincoln is once again possessed by the demon, who is quickly disposed of by Judith. Telling Mark what the demon told her, Mark doesn't exactly take the news that the demon needs dead bodies to grow stronger all that well, leading to one of my favourite little quips in the entire movie.
Maybe I should just save him the trouble and kill myself.
Why don't you?
See? It's scenes like this which make the demon far more of an amusing character than arguably even the toys themselves. With the demon's powers having grown stronger with the deaths of Lincoln and Anne, Judith and Mark massacre the toys coming to life, disposing of Mr. Static and Baby Oopsie Daisy, but the two being separated when the grisly Teddy begins to mutate. That sounded a lot less weird when I was writing the script. So, why does it begin to mutate? I don't know. Upon being separated from Mark and staring down death in the face by the grizzly bear, all seems lost until Judith is saved by a toy soldier. That is, only to be stopped by the demon who manages to capture her. So while Mark barely survives against the grizzly bear, Judith is having to face off against a more personal demon.
First, I'm gonna crawl on top of you and do the nasty.
So naturally, with the toy soldier coming to Judith's rescue and turning into human form, we then see... well, what ostensibly amounts to two kids play fighting. So the soldier manages to defeat the demon, and Mark serves up the grizzly bear extra crispy. But unfortunately, in the process, we lose... the chicken mobile! With the demon destroyed, the toy soldier tells Judith that he was her yet-to-be-born child, using his spiritual power to help her out so that he could be born 8 months later. And so our movie ends with Mark and Judith leaving the Arcadia toy factory and Judith's unborn child fading into the darkness. And so, with all that said, what are my final thoughts on demonic toys? Like I said at the beginning of the review, demonic toys might not be the scariest horror movie you've ever seen, and nor will it be the funniest B-movie you've ever watched either, but this is a movie that I do have a soft spot for. It was the horror movie that got me into the genre to begin with, and though to some demonic toys might just seem like another horror B-movie, to me, Demonic Toys is a horror movie that I always watch around the October season. In terms of recommendations, if you're a fan of full moon horror movies or are just looking for something outside the Hollywood horror movies to watch, then I'd say give Demonic Toys a look if you want to watch an entertaining B-movie this Halloween night. So on that note, I'm Skully, keep it new metal, and next time on Skully Reviews we're going to go back to reviewing some games again, and the next game shall be about a certain lizard who loves television. Happy Halloween everybody, and I'll catch you later.
Fuck you, you little shit! Just kill me!
movie was written by a young David S. Goyer.